Well, it's been 22 years, 22 very long years in which we have used it, we have played with it, we have worked in it, we have lived in it. And today we will finally answer the question, what is LinkedIn? No, not really. We're actually going to we are going to talk about LinkedIn, but we all freaking know what LinkedIn is. It's the big blue. Everybody knows LinkedIn. Everybody lives on LinkedIn. But that doesn't mean everybody's thinking strategically about how to use LinkedIn, how to leverage it for their team, for their function, but also for their own personal brand and their journey to getting a seat at the table. And that is what we're going to talk about, LinkedIn mastery. Not algorithmic bullshit. We're talking about how to use it strategically to make sure everybody sees how incredibly valuable you and your team are so that you get your seat at the table right after this.
It's true that LinkedIn has 1 billion users, but it also has these two knuckleheads, so I guess it evens out. Welcome to the People MBA. This episode on getting more out of recruiting's favorite social channel is brought to you by Happy Dance Career Sites and Employer Brand Labs. Let's go check the voicemail. You've reached the People MBA. We're out shopping for our new global headquarters, so go ahead and talk after the beep.
Hi, Brian and James. It's Allison Kelly from Dexcom. I know we agree, LinkedIn is a core tool for recruiting and employment branding. We found it beneficial to align our internal teams on content strategy. I'm curious, what are some additional ways that we can increase our impact and elevate our role using LinkedIn? Thank you.
Brian, I don't know if you can believe it. It's our anniversary. It's episode 10. What'd you get me?
Double digits. Oh,
I know.
I got you a winning smile, and I'm going to, yeah, and I'm going to let you do a lot of the talking for once.
Just this once. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Actually, as the guy who edited the first couple of videos, it's a pretty terrifyingly even split how much we both talk a lot. Like there's no kind of like one dominating the other with a very rare exception. But thanks. I think I'll pass that gift right back to you and let you do some talking today too.
All right, thanks. But I'm going to challenge that because I think you probably use about 150 words a minute. So I pause and I'm like painfully slow sometimes. So, anyway.
That's true. I am just looking at the waveform, which just shows, who is speaking and for how long and not necessarily how many words per minute.
Yeah, it's not a competition, but I think you're winning.
Okay, that's fine. I'll take that, I guess. If there's something to win, sure, I'll win that. Anyway, enough chit chat. Let's talk about LinkedIn. This week, we've got a big, do it right. Big download. It's a big 20-pluser. It's serious work. So make sure to go download it over at peoplemba.com. It is free if you're subscribing. If you're not subscribing, subscribe for free. How hard is that? It's just your email address. Come on. You give it out to everybody else. Give it up to us, I guess. That is the worst sales pitch ever. But you get my drift. Look, you know us. We're just here to help you get your seat at the table. We're here to help you elevate. We're here to help you show off. We're here to help you get what you and your team absolutely need. This week, we're diving deep onto LinkedIn, not just how to use algo hacks and how to figure out what's the best time to post, which I think is total crap. This is about how do you use what is arguably the most important and powerful tool inside the recruiter and employer brand arsenal to actually not just generate clicks and likes and views, but to generate influence inside your company. That is what we do. We're here to help you get influence so you can grab your seat at the table. This week's episode comes with a big download. It's 20-plus pager. It is a serious tome of a document on strategic thinking around LinkedIn. Go check it out over at peoplemba.com. It is free if you subscribe. If you don't subscribe for free. And then it is also free. How many times can he say the word free? We'll find out. It's like that commercial. Brian, do you have the commercial, the Tootsie Roll Pop commercial where the owl goes, how many licks does it take to get in the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop?
I've never seen that advert in my life.
Every American above the age of 40 is like, oh yeah, I know that one. Anyway, it feels like that. How many times can he say the word free before it's all over? This week's episode is brought to you by Happy Dance Career Sites, makers of some pretty cool career sites that are AI driven. Also by Employer Brand Labs for people and companies who can't afford to mess around with their employer brand anymore. So check those wonderful companies out. And for right now, we're going to dive into LinkedIn mastery. Ooh, that's a good word, mastery. Brian, as the primary author of this tome, set us up. Answer me this. Is 22 years in, is LinkedIn still important?
Wow. Wow. I mean, the simple answer is yes. And I think it's getting even more important. It's a cornerstone of every organization's digital footprint when it comes to employer brand. And actually, arguably, that's now expanding at such a rate of knots. I would say it's the premium primary channel for brand building and business growth, full stop. And there's nearly 1 billion members, including 4 out of 5 business decision makers. I think it's very easy to argue that it's crucial for reaching quality talent and influential audiences. Absolutely.
So why does it get such a bad rap? I mean, I know that when I talk to social media people, they're super hyped for TikTok and all the fun stuff, and they still think Facebook is still a thing. And they all seem to look at LinkedIn with a little bit of disdain, like Facebook's boring cousin, right? Like this, it's like the thing they have to fill because someone said they have to, because their job says they have to, but they don't care and they don't treat it special. And they don't treat it as interesting or as a separate thing. Where does this kind of disdain or kind of dislike come from?
Well, I think if you look at TikTok, you look at Instagram and Facebook and everything else, they're phenomenally successful social media platforms for the masses and for general audiences to talk about anything and everything in their niche. What LinkedIn have done very successfully over the years is carved a huge niche for themselves as the place to be and to have to be as organizations or professionals, which means the mindset and the intentions and the focus around why you are on there in the first place and the type of messaging that you're putting out there is very specific to a professional business audience. So the intention and aspiration and the curation of content there is very focused around brand building and business growth. If you engage with an audience, the chances are they're either a very qualified potential customer or a very qualified potential candidate. And that is worth a hell of a lot of money to organizations, such that they spend millions and millions of dollars and pounds every year. They write that check because they know they have to. Now, is it writing a check to Darth Vader and the Death Star? Is it the sort of necessary evil? Maybe. But you can't argue with the fact that, employee shared content on there gets 2 times higher engagement than just corporate posts. Making LinkedIn indispensable for authentic, trusted communication when it comes to employer brands.
Yeah.
And there's a million stats out there. We don't have to sort of quote them all or sort of try and fight the business case for LinkedIn. But they do tout the fact that if you're on there marketing your organization and your employer brand, you'll see a 43% lower hiring cost. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it's definitely a very important part of the mix.
Yeah, that's a number you have to look at with, like, you can generate those numbers too if you squint really, really hard in a very particular way and stand on one foot on the third Tuesday of every second month. I also want to point out that LinkedIn is one of the very, very few social media channels that doesn't allow anonymous content for the most part, that people have names associated with that post. And despite the fact that I get at least 2 or 3 BS scamming posts every single day in my DMs, these are people who have 0 followers and go, hey, my boss wants me to ask you about that. Like, no, you don't. This is all lies. But for the most part, this is a channel in which this is their name and this is their picture. So it feels a lot more authentic, which means there's a lot more you can do with it. It's tough to try and sell Timmy 123. I like to dance, on TikTok, which who the heck is that guy? But if I see someone on LinkedIn and they have a picture and they have a connection, I know that they're a real person. And to your other point, that it's the place where your buyers are, it's the place where your candidates are. Not only that, the way LinkedIn works is that it is truly a network where if it's not your buyer or your candidate, they know your buyer or your candidate. They can introduce you to your buyer or candidate. They can pass content up to that buyer or candidate. And it truly is an incredibly powerful network. Is there any kind of current challenges that you're seeing with how people and how TA leaders or just TA functions in general are using LinkedIn? Is there something we've been doing for too long? Is there something we should be doing that's brand new? What are some things we can be doing to start to elevate our use of LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, Christ, we could go down this rabbit hole for hours and hours and hours and hours. We could call out some cliches of the "we're hiring" posts and all, all that kind of stuff. So I think to be useful and make this conversation really effective for our audience, let's try and keep it simple and focusing on sort of the basics, the things that can, sort of a low bar to achieve, but high impact if you implement them. So I'll run through a couple, and you tell me whether they resonate or not. I think the first thing is focusing on employee stories for the best part is probably the most effective thing that I've seen over many, many, many years, and the stats and the numbers and the data proves this. But most organizations, a lot of organizations anyway, are still putting out corporate messages that are shiny and
they're corporate
on behalf of the company. And where actually people want the real authentic voice of employees, and that they want to see more storytelling, not facts and data and corporate voice. I think the second thing is in a world where we've got to prove a return on investment, cutting straight to the chase, saying we're hiring or look at this vacant role is, and you can make that content really interesting, but it's all too tempting to cut to the chase and go straight for the jugular in terms of the quick transactional return on investment. We're actually, it's been proven that a balanced content strategy with, say, 40% recruitment, 40% employer brand awareness building and increasing reach, and then maybe 20% thought leadership is a much better mix.
Yeah.
And I think it's harder to prove the return on investment with content that is designed solely to extend brand reach, influence, and sentiment. But I think we're in a world where we have to start playing the long game. It's just the world we're in, where if you see a brand, you get to know a brand, you have an affinity with a brand, you're much more likely to engage when the time is right. So I think that's probably the biggest one, actually. Having a content strategy with multiple layers, not just recruitment content when you're looking for candidates. I think this might be stating the obvious now, and I think you've mentioned this a couple of times on some previous episodes, James, but prioritizing video and interactive posts, behind the scenes content, content series posts that link together, that tell great stories. You got to optimize for the platform now. It's clearly pushing video. The world is moving in that direction, and I still think we see a lot of text-based posts or even just flat imagery, and they've got limited effectiveness these days, right?
I want to kind of dig in a little bit, because I look, there's clearly an instinct in our industry to say, if the mix is 40% recruiting posts, 40% employer brand posts, 20% thought leadership posts, okay, let's get some recruiting posts. We're hiring. Okay, let's get some employer branding posts. We're great. But let's get some thought leadership posts. Hey, we asked our CFO what they should do. They should make some money. Like, it just feels so surface level, perfunctory, checking a box. It feels like so much of our industry, and I'm stealing an idea, and I wish I could credit, because I saw the post on LinkedIn and I don't remember who posted it, but this idea that we've over efficientized ourselves to death. We're so focused on 2 LinkedIn posts a day or 4 LinkedIn posts a week that we stop to wonder, is it a good post? Is it a useful post? You're right. I bang the drum against how much I hate "we're hiring" posts so much, because it says nothing. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't say that you aren't hiring. You should say it, but you should tell a story. You should be connected to your brand. It should be focused on something more than completely transactional, or you're just becoming a transactional company, which is synonymous with being a commodity, which is nobody's way to win.
Yeah, I entirely agree with that. I think quality over quantity every time. Unfortunately, to be really competitive, especially for the global brands who have global brand competitors, the reality is you need to do both. Yeah. You need to have a certain amount of quantity, and it needs to be of the highest quality. And to your point, you can hit the metrics of the numbers of posts. You can have your optimum time. Yeah, you can do that. But I think a cohesive brand approach, and obviously I think this is a nice segue into sort of the next sort of part of our conversation as well, is aligning the recruitment and employer brand objectives with corporate branding such that it's a branded experience. So I think there's such an opportunity to do a better job here. You know, we've done a number of campaigns over the years where there's been a product launch that the entire company is really excited about, and it's very important to, you know, for the next share price call and all of that good stuff. And then the campaign right next to it, dovetailed with absolute cohesion, is the employer brand story of the people behind the product.
Yes.
And
yes.
I've seen at least 2 instances that I can think of where it turns out the people behind the product campaigns outshine and outperform the other so many times over. It's unbelievable. And if that doesn't tell us something, you know, we've got to learn from that. So the lesson there, you know, what's the point in saying that? If you do that in a coordinated way, use the fact that the people behind the product angle really, really works, and go into that expecting to further the reach, influence, and sentiment of your employer brand, absolutely, but use it as a sharp tool to sell more products and reach more customers as well, because it's there for the taking.
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake is when people post to LinkedIn, they think it's an either or situation. Either I am talking about how great our CFO is, or I am talking about why it's great to work here. And you're like, doesn't your CFO work here? Aren't they employed? But these are the same things. Why are you bifurcating them for some weird abstract reason? If someone likes working here and they do good work, put them together, right? Any post done well should be promoting the corporate brand, the consumer brand, and the employer people brand. Maybe not in exactly equal amounts, but why not? But why not shoot for that?
Absolutely. You know, and the final point I'll add to your original question is LinkedIn are getting better at producing really good analytics now. Mm-hmm. And I would suggest that not a lot of organizations are using those analytics to the full potential, because, you know, in a he said, she said, I think, you think conversation, which we all have inside our organizations, getting the data out and demonstrating, like, okay, where's the most reach? Where's the most engagement? Where's the most comments that have really moved the needle on sentiment? What's created so much engagement and a conversion rate of click-throughs to our careers site or our product pages on our corporate sites, etc. It's there to be done, and it should be a continual loop of improvement. There's no excuse now. But it's never the tools. It's always how you use the tools, the strategy you apply against it.
It's a bird. It's a plane. Nope. It's the spot where we suggest you subscribe to the People MBA, either on YouTube or your podcast player. All downloads are available at peoplemba.com. If you're getting something useful out of it, tell someone. They might even thank you.
I think I've done so many LinkedIn audits, competitive audits. The number of companies who have a clear one post a week quota, and every once in a while there's quarterly results, so they throw in a second second post in the week. One, it's just so kind of like, oh, I guess we have to do it. But the problem is that you're posting so little, your analytics coming back aren't useful. You start to think, if I only post this is how much audience I'm supposed to get. No, that sets the bar poorly. This is a place where you should be posting twice a day. Or you can be posting twice a day. This is a place where you could be considering, how do you throw spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks? Not because you don't know, but because you want to know, because you're experimenting intentionally. So many different ways to say it. I have a friend of mine, not to toot my own horn because I think it's a really weird horn to toot, but what was that? Who says, James, you're really good at kind of sticking to your same core message over and over and over and finding brand new ways to say it. And I initially I said, oh gosh, he thinks I'm boring. But then I realized, no, that was a real strong compliment to say, how many different ways can you make that idea sing? And just in the last couple of weeks, I've had whiteboard posts where I'm literally writing on the whiteboard. I have a Jeopardy quote. I just had a wild, crazy, hey, let's just do a answer from Jeopardy. And the question is, what is employer brand? Like, there's so many different ways to extract an idea, because that's what you're trying to do in LinkedIn. You're not trying to push a message. You're trying to spark interest, enthusiasm, excitement, inspiration in somebody else. And you can't do that using the same tired Canva post over and over again. You can't do it using the same tired press release format over and over again. Saying video is important is great, but that doesn't mean take a text post, go into Canva and write happy holidays as it appears if I click the video, which that makes me crazy. Like, you've wasted 5 seconds of my life to show me that which you should have just put in the text, whatever. There's so many different ways to do this. I feel like we have not even come close. Like 99% of companies have not come close to pushing a boundary on what this platform can do. Yeah. Push back if you think I'm wrong.
No, I think it's such a good point. However, I was slightly distracted by the fact that all I can think of is James's weird horn.
And that's why this post is not for kids. That's why I have to check that box every time I post it. Telling you, this is not for children. No.
Oh, dear.
You're going to get us in trouble.
Did I just lower the tone of the...
Something happened. Something happened.
But, it's such a good point if we could just move on rapidly and pretend that didn't happen.
Please. I don't remember at all.
It's creativity and using the raw ingredients and the content and the stories that you've got. There is a million different ways to sort of to present that. And, a lot of content gets produced. It's fantastic. And, let's talk about the recycling of the same content as well. A lot of the time it can be used. If you can produce one great bit of video content, you could get several individual posts out of that. You could get a podcast out of it. You can get a newsletter. The LinkedIn newsletter feature is phenomenal for creating a long tail of evergreen content of your posts that have, a half-life of like 4 or 5 days sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah.
So the creativity and coming up with the content and leveraging it, it's there to be had. And a lot of organizations aren't doing that. And when it comes to the partnership between marketing and recruitment, oh my God, there is so much opportunity. It's absolutely, there's so much opportunity.
Yeah. And then it's just kind of on a base level. When we say creativity, it means maybe using AI to generate an interesting image out that makes it look like it was made out of felt. Brian Fink did a whole series where it looked all his images looked like they were stitched yarn. Hey, Brian, how you doing? There's so many different ways to just say, how do we stand out? How do we say something different? There's such a kind of corporate comms mentality that says, if I have to use the tagline, I have to use it in such and such a visual space. And that's not necessarily true. I love companies who have figured out how to put their tagline in meme posts and make it work. I love companies who figured out how to take their tagline and put it backwards to make me kind of go, what is that? And I have to read it backwards, and it's Inception, man. It's putting stuff in my head, which is really what we're trying to do. There's so many different ways. And obviously I'm not a big proponent of saying the tagline 4,000 times, but if there's something you have to put out there, that doesn't mean you can't experiment with ways to put it out there. And marketing may be a little persnickety about how you do it, but this is the place where you can experiment. In fact, in a lot of ways, if you do it right, TA is the place where marketing can help experiment in places that normally in their home space they can't, right? If they mess up a tagline, they're not selling products, someone's getting fired. But if they mess up the tagline on an employer brand post, not so problematic, but it's a chance to experiment. It's a sandbox, if you will. Yeah.
So I love the sentiment of that. I personally think you need to hold yourself to the same standards as marketing. If you're really going to, but you are right. You can tend to get away with more, being creative with something. I would also caveat with the something that you're being creative with needs to be of substance, and it needs to be strategically aligned, and it needs to be core to the message. You need an element of cohesion and continuity and consistency. But then there's a million and one different ways to slice and dice, or use a different format to put it forward, or find examples of that from different employees, divisions, teams, geographies, you name it. So it comes with a health warning, that one. But you got to do your homework, but then absolutely get creative.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get a little deeper into the marketing conversation. We've forged those waters a bit. Most paint with a real broad brush here, kids. I know what I'm doing here. Most companies give the LinkedIn keys to marketing. Whether that's right or wrong, I have lots of thoughts. I love it when companies who sell biotech, they don't even sell biotech. They don't sell anything. They're funded. They're inventing things. They're hoping to expand things. And they say, no, that's our consumer corporate channel. It's like, well, are you selling anything? Do people who buy RVs go to LinkedIn to check out which RVs to buy? Of course not. So why does marketing own that stuff? But classically, they do. Our audience, hi, how you doing, should want access to it, and they might find that there are many, many obstacles to getting access, let alone the keys to do what they want. So let's dive in a little deeper on how do you have that conversation? How do you start that conversation? What are some steps in those conversations? What should you be asking for? What should you be looking for? Is it trying to grab all the keys and all the power all at once? Is it a slow build? What are you doing? Let's start there.
All right. So before we jump into the tactics of sort of what to say and how to navigate, from a political internal perspective, I think there's a sort of really important sort of premise to put out there first.
Okay.
I think, have you ever been in a meeting where there is the head of a team and somebody asks a really important question and nobody knows the answer? Everyone leans in, but they don't look at the head of the team. They look at somebody else, right? The person you look at in that room, that's the leader.
Yeah.
It's not the guy who's called the boss.
Yeah.
I think this is a similar situation with LinkedIn, that if you stop fighting for ownership and instead you lead by showcasing undeniable value with employee-driven content that supports both recruitment and brand building from a marketing point of view, when there is a LinkedIn question, when it comes to strategy, when it comes to the next round of investment and all the rest of it, that room of people lean in and they look at you. They don't look at the head of marketing.
They certainly should.
Right? So I think don't enter the fight is the first thing. Stop fighting for ownership. Now, of course, it's different if you're outside so much that you're even precluded to put any content on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Now, that's a different scenario. It's ridiculous.
Thank you.
But it of course it does happen. So question to you then, James, assuming you can get access to put content on LinkedIn, do you need to fight for the keys to the car to be in the driving seat or not?
So, Brian, I take a very guerrilla marketing approach to this stuff because I've always been kind of in a position where I haven't had a lot of influence in the space. I've either been new or I've kind of just been tucked away, the one-person army of employer brand. We all know those stories. I focus on two tracks. One, if I can get just a little toehold in the LinkedIn channel, I want, even if it's just one post a week, like the bare minimum. If I get one post a week, I'm going to make damn sure that one post kills, like it just destroys. And that means human faces in the photos, videos that matter, interesting stories, no BS kind of text that says nothing except please click the link. I'm going to look at the LinkedIn algorithm as much as I can to kind of game the system. I'm going to post it and then ping everybody on Slack or Teams and say, like and share and comment this post. I want to blow marketing out of the water in the nicest possible way so that I can then be seen as the LinkedIn expert. And that's when I start to kind of build expertise and kind of generate that seat at the table. Alternatively, if I'm completely shut out altogether, I know everybody is always super attracted to that big old follower number on the corporate account. Ooh, it's 100,000 followers. Ooh, it's 2.3 million followers. Guess what? You can't reach them all. And you never will because it costs a shit ton of cash to reach them. That's how LinkedIn makes its money. But if every recruiter, if every hiring manager, if every advocate, every ally, every friend I have in the business posts and we share, we post around, we can generate way more interest and way more attention to what we have to say than the typical stuff pushed on the corporate channel, which is, you think about the ones that are liked by 3 people, right? You know, the ones, they're very, very kind of like, okay, the boss said I had to post this, so I did. That's how I think you start to get invited to say, look, treat LinkedIn like it's special, not like Facebook's dumb or boring cousin. It has its own kind of weirdness. It's got its own sense of algorithm. It's got its own rules. And if you know them, you can maximize them. And you can say things like, look, my post got 4 times as much engagement as yours. Imagine if we took my thinking and applied them to your posts. How everybody wins. And that to me is how I approach. But like I said, I'm a guerrilla marketer more than anything else. And I bet you have a different answer.
So I don't disagree with what you just said. I think there's a halfway house. The interesting paradox in a lot of organizations I've been on the inside of is marketing have told you that they own it, but HR pay for it. So
time out. Let's just have a moment. I want if we could put some special effects on this moment, Brian, say it again. We'll slow it down. We'll give it some love, get some reverb, like you're in a big open room, like you're at, live at Red Rocks. Yeah. Say that again.
Yeah. So marketing will tell you they own it, but a lot of the time HR pay for it. And it's a multi-million-dollar budget line item a lot of the time for global brands as well. Yeah. It's not an insignificant amount. So, usually somebody not too far away from you, maybe 1 or 2 rungs up the ladder, can pull some moves and demand some attention and get you a semi-seat at the table for 5 minutes, get your foot in the door, usually. So from a political perspective, it's usually worth exploring that. However, I would advise don't do that until, to your point, James, you already know a little bit about how LinkedIn works. You know the stats of your own channels. You've got some engagement data to go in there with. You've got some comparable data for other brands that use employer brand posting versus corporate in your space. And be ready to be able to answer some questions. I would even go as far as saying, develop your content strategy for 6, 9, 12 months and present a robust plan of what you intend to do, achieve, and deliver for the organization, not just on your side of the fence, but also on the other side of the fence as well. So now not only are you the technical expert, the domain expert, you have a strategy and a plan that's going to benefit both sides. And have a small ask. Don't ask for the whole 9 yards right now. Ask for the first few inches. And then you can dive into the world that you're talking about, James. A guerrilla approach to demonstrate, look, if we just create a little bit of content my way, look at what happens. And a brilliant way to start that off is to turn the gratitude and appreciation of your employees into the currency you need. In the absence of dollars, let's go for the currency of gratitude, pride, and passion, and togetherness, and all of that good stuff. Create content that employees are going to want to share because they're the hero in the story.
Yes.
Create content that has opportunity to be a content series, so it's undeniable that series needs to continue. Align it with the themes of your EVP. Align it with your values. If you're smart, you might even sneak in a CEO interview or 2, and then ripple out from there and other people to let them tell their story. So now you're getting buy-in left, right, and center and build, because before you know it, marketing will see you as a very, very powerful and valuable ally that can make them look good. When you achieve that, then you swim in the same direction. Things get a lot easier, and you never know, the budget might get bigger, etc. But it's great content with the right sentiment that's on brand. It doesn't have to be BBC production value quality day one, and it might never have to be either. So I think we do agree there, James. But I think the world is different in very large corporate global brands. You've got to play the game a little bit first. And if you've got to play a game in a corporate world, the rule is you've got to be the most prepared, the most organized, and be the most generous with your domain expertise. You take a robust plan, and put it on the table and say, okay, what have you got? We're paying for this channel, you're running it. But at the end of the day, if marketing want to have the keys and drive the car, be the navigator. That's okay. It's a great place to sit.
Yes. When we say we want to post on LinkedIn, we always assume that we want to post recruiting content. And I don't know that that's necessarily useful. I think if you post content that has a clear consumer corporate connection, you can make a claim that you're helping them. I mean, that claim is so obvious. It doesn't feel like those are yours, these are mine. Like we said early on, these posts have content that can push lots of different buttons. At the same time, if you look, this is a really interesting kind of LinkedIn fact. If you look at the number of followers you have, it doesn't delineate candidates and customers. It just says followers. So anything you do to help that number goes up makes them look just as good as it makes you look good. So don't play the, zero-sum game of these are mine, these are yours, and but show how you can be incredibly helpful, because you can. That expertise around the platform is hard to come by. I mean, yes, you should be on LinkedIn or YouTube. You should be looking at videos, and there's plenty of smart people to be reading and say, okay, what can I be using? And there's, the rules shift on a regular basis, so keep up to date with them. But that expertise is how you get to be seen as the expert, and that's how you get called into those meetings where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there is a strategic marketing plan, then you need to know that inside out as well. Mm-hmm. And if you take the objectives of that marketing plan and make them yours primarily to begin with, now here's the difference. Your tactical approach to hitting those strategic objectives is slightly different. You're going to do it by telling employee stories, by telling stories of teamwork, collaboration, innovation, and overcoming adversity together, because that's the magic that lives inside your organization. And, all of those things move the needle, hit the objectives from a marketing point of view. They're not daft. As soon as they see the needle moving, they can see them getting ever closer to their own bonus, then, you just need to make sure that there's a good, healthy crossover there and, make friends and influence people.
Yeah. My favorite content is Company X releases product Y. Much fanfare, much press release, commercial on Super Bowl, yada, yada, yada. You go interview one of the people who invented the feature, did a thing, and say, oh, can we just have a 10-minute conversation? I want you to tell me about an obstacle you hit, a problem you hit, something surprising you didn't anticipate, and how you resolve that. And just interview them. Pick up your phone, and, do a little camera, just do a little vlog situation, if that's still a word. I don't know what the kids say these days. But talk to them, and they're going to talk about, so let me show you. So it turns out that when you put electricity through this thing, okay, this happens, but this also happens. And suddenly you can get that kind of, the nerdery kind of comes out, which is super passionate, super interesting. And you put that on LinkedIn. Are you making a commercial for the product, or are you making a commercial for the person who made the product? And the answer is yes. So, that's the trick. You don't have to see it as zero-sum games. You listed all these different content types. I think it's very easy. I think for people who have been trained for years that recruiting content and employer brand content looks like this, to break that frame and say, wait, I can tell a consumer marketing message that serves me? Like, it takes a minute to digest, but that is really where your head should be. And it doesn't require radical shifts. It doesn't require complete reinvention. It simply means, look, if you're going to talk to that person about their job, tell a specific story about the job they just did. Why not? So long as it's not violating, your corporate legal blah, 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 blahs. Yeah, do that, because that's the interesting stuff. Two, people who are, if you're doing press about this product, this piece of content will get folded into that press cycle. There's plenty. If you're thinking about like software or hardware top products, places like Wired and The Verge and all these places, they love to show what the employees say about the product they're just releasing. They show this stuff off, which means your post will skyrocket in views, which means you can start to show off how incredibly smart you are about this stuff. At no point, if you're paying attention, did either of us say anything about spending money. You're already spending money on the channel. The question is, how do you do it better? How do you do it more smartly? How do you work better with us? Brian, as we start to kind of wrap this up, let's just kind of put a bow on the marketing conversation. Is there anything else you would say or talk about to say, look, you're having that conversation with marketing. You want to be better partners. You want to be better friends, hopefully. Where does that conversation start? Or is there anything we're missing in that conversation so far?
So I think you touched on it actually when you talked about the follower count, and you don't know whether that is prospects or candidates, you don't know whether it's just external community, and a good chunk of that is also existing employees. Now, if you can build over time more engagement and a community of your existing employees, just think how powerful that is. When you need an army of people to say great things or support you or overcome risk of reputation when the chips are down and all the rest of it, just think for a second how powerful it is at the stroke of a key to be able to put something up and rally the troops to get favorable engagement, encouragement, and support. It's phenomenally valuable. So you can be really creative with ways of demonstrating the power of having an engaged employee base. And if you look at what turns the CEO and the C-suite on, you look at what marketing are trying to achieve and think about what's the angle of credibility, being more genuine as a brand, authenticity, transparency, being protected when you're attacked in the media, etc. How can we use this army to our best advantage? Now, those are the stats and the case study data points that you want to present, as well as everything else we've talked about. So in the download, there's real world actionable strategies that turn LinkedIn from just another recruitment channel into a business critical growth engine, and how to build an army of advocates and brand ambassadors, which, is a potent force to be reckoned with in any organization. We've got tangible ideas and strategy on how to stop fighting marketing and make them your best friend, which is a huge win in any organization that I've worked alongside for the last 20 years. Not to say, obviously, at least, getting more out of it is going to help you boost candidate quality and reduce hiring. We went a little bit in depth with the mastering the LinkedIn analytics as well. You don't have to become an absolute expert at this, but you need to know what you're talking about, and you need to be the most credible in the room. In my experience, that's not too difficult. No. So learn the basics. And apart from anything else, this argument and this element of your strategy as a TA leader, I would argue it's a cornerstone essential for you to elevate your own credibility and your own career inside any organization. This is the one thing that you have to have real good mastery of.
Yeah. I want to underline something you said, because I think it's kind of like the thesis that this whole project you and I doing this is all about. And it's not about fighting with marketing. It's about you show your value, you show your worth by showing how you're not doing this to hire better. You're doing this to grow a company. That what your objectives are company objectives, not recruiting objectives. And the more you lean on that, the more these conversations are quibbling over the best way to do something rather than quibbling over if you should do something, if you should be allowed in, if you have expertise. And that is a far, far more effective place to be.
Absolutely. I've got to give you some credit for something here, James. So,
no, you don't. No.
So, I put a lot of this download together. However, you named it so good they can't ignore you, which I think says it all. It sums up like the last sort of 5 minutes of the conversation. This is about being so good you can't be ignored. It's always the best strategy inside a corporate organization. And I think it'll fare you well, especially when it comes to LinkedIn mastery and getting the most out of it, making friends with marketing and driving the organization forward together.
Yeah, and I totally stole that from Steve Martin. But if you're going to steal good. That's how I think of it.
There you go. Good old Steve.
All right. A classic. All right. Well, Brian, thanks so much. This has been another great conversation. Remember, that download is at peoplemba.com. It is free for subscribers. Subscribe to get access to all the free stuff. It's all free. I said it so many times, you can't believe it. Again, thanks so much for Happy Dance and Employer Brand Labs for sponsoring this episode. As always, check out Happy Dance for career sites. Check out Employer Brand for Employer Brand Labs for employer brand stuff. Otherwise, tell your friends, leave us a voicemail, share this stuff out. We are growing. It's been a weird kind of bumpy ride, but we're starting to see the traction start to happen and people are talking about it. So let people know you have TA leader friends who need this information. So make sure that they know it's there. So with that, Brian, I think we talk about candidate experience next week, and I can't wait to dive into that. And I know you can't either.
Absolutely. See you next week, team.
All right. See you, everybody.
37 minutes of your life gone, just like that. I guess that's slightly better than wasting it on LinkedIn. Anyway, if this has inspired you or helped you see new ways of getting things done, tell a friend about the podcast or point them to peoplemba.com. Later, Tater.